Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, it's Chris Hand. Good morning. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. We're doing good. Mac is in the building. Ken Weaver's in the building, and you on the Super Text line and soon to be phone lines. I think we're having an issue with the phones today, but we got your text rolling in at 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. It's been a strange couple of days when you're looking for news. Normally, you have a couple stories to go off of. It seems like lately it's been border, Biden crime family, speaker race, Democrat craziness. But the past couple of days, it's really hard to find anything in the news other than what's happening in Israel with Hamas and how that affects global politics on the world stage. And it seems like that's all anybody's talking about. Have you seen any other headlines being dominating like this in recent memory?
And that's across the board. That's Fox, MSNBC, like name it. They're covering it the whole time.
It always scares me the most when it seems like everybody is looking at the same thing. Like, where aren't we looking?
What's the distraction?
It feels like that sometimes. For me, I still don't understand how we don't have any info on how this intelligence breach, happened. There was a lapse in intelligence. It to me, it feels like it's always so convenient that there's a lapse in intelligence. There's an intelligence failure, Like it just so happened that the cameras were off in Epstein's cell when he killed himself. It's just weird.
Coincidence.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence, man.
You're probably right. We solved it.
You're probably right. Let's just stop thinking about it.
Turns out it was just a coincidence. But everybody's asking what went wrong in this intelligence failure at one of the most highly protected borders in one of the most contested pieces of land on the entire planet, if not the most contested piece of land on the entire planet. The AP was reporting, that there was an unprecedented onslaught by the militant Hamas group. We know all that. But they said the major failure, this is a major failure, according to Yaakov Amidror. I know I'm butchering it, but it's a former national security advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. Says this operation actually proves that the intelligence and abilities in Gaza were no good. He declined to offer an explanation further of the failure, but saying lessons must be learned when the dust settles. A rep said, now is not the time for that. First we fight, then we investigate. And I just feel like that's a mistake. Maybe not for the Israeli people, but I feel like it would be a mistake for the Americans to get involved before we investigate. I totally understand why Israel wants to go in and exact revenge on what happened. And you can't blame them for that one iota. But I've been operating from the standpoint of go for it. You can defend yourselves. You're equipped for this. You've been planning for this. This is not a shocker. It's not like, oh no, Hamas doesn't like us. Who didn't know that?
Yeah, this isn't the first time.
But so they've already been compiling intelligence on these guys. They probably already have a lot of intelligence on their operations inside Gaza. They probably know where a lot of these people are. And, so go for it. But the AP report continues saying, some say it's too early to pin the blame solely on an intelligence fault. They point to a wave of low-level violence in the West Bank that shifted military resources there and the political chaos rolling over steps by Netanyahu's far-right government to overhaul the judiciary. So basically saying he was spread too thin. He's been dealing with political issues, and then they had low-level violence in the West Bank. But, the AP goes on, the apparent lack of prior knowledge of Hamas's plot will likely be seen as a culprit in the chain of events that led to the deadliest attack in Israel in decades. Now, it goes on to say, despite the abilities that Israel has in terms of their technology, their border security, they failed to know that this was coming. Hamas was able to keep it under wraps. And they're saying that it probably took months of planning and meticulous training. and involved coordination among multiple militant groups. And it appeared to go under Israel's radar. So how did that happen? A founder of the Israel Defense and Security Forum, a hawkish group of former military commanders, their president, Avivi, is saying the other side learned to deal with our technological dominance, and they stopped using technology that could expose it. Do you hear that? Israel got too technical, and Hamas decided to go backwards. So the president and founder of the Israeli Defense and Security Forum says they've gone back to the Stone Age, explaining that militants in Hamas weren't using phones or computers. They were conducting their sensitive business in rooms specially guarded from technological espionage or going underground. They were using pens and papers. They were passing notes. And that's how they got around it. I mean, it's interesting to think with all of these technological advances, the thing that really undid all of it was a piece of paper and some ink. I mean, all that money, all that security, all of that intelligence gathering, and it was thwarted by passing notes. It's crazy. Truly crazy. I think Israel has every right to go in there. I don't want to focus on that for America. I feel like we have too much going on. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. You know, I'm seeing more and more conservative voices coming out saying the exact same thing that we were saying yesterday on the show. We have plenty of problems at home that we should focus on first. And one of them was President Trump yesterday. And he has gone on record saying he fully supports Israel, but he's also saying we need to take care of Americans, not the rest of the world.
When I'm in the White House, the entire world will know that America is strong, America is safe, and that we are going to take care of our people. We're going to take care of the men and women of our country. We're not going to worry about the rest of the world.
And we shouldn't worry about the rest of the world. Time and time again, we find ourselves in the land of unforeseen consequences. It's not a good place to be. We fund Ukraine, and those weapons end up on the black market. We leave Afghanistan, those weapons end up on the black market. Those weapons end up hurting our ally. We give $6 billion to Iran for hostages. That money ends up being used by militants to hurt an ally. The land of unforeseen consequences. If we just stop doing stuff, stop being the world police, and focus on our problems at home, we wouldn't have those unforeseen consequences. If we didn't pull out of Afghanistan overnight, there's not a treasure trove of weapons for the Middle East extremists and militants to buy. If we don't fund Ukraine, there aren't those weapons going on the black market. If we don't give $6 billion to Iran, we're not in the land of unforeseen consequences. But here we are, and it's a mess. You know, it's crazy to me. None of this is new. We've been doing this for a long time. I actually found audio of Ron Paul in 2001 talking about just this, going over the fact that we're quite literally finding ourselves in a position where we're learning the hard way that money doesn't buy peace. And Ron Paul was proposing isolationism in 2001.
Now, I have a proposal and a suggestion, which I think fits the American tradition, that we should treat both sides equally, but in a different way. Today, we treat both sides equally by giving both sides money and telling them what to do. Not $1 million here or there, not $100 million here or there, but tens of billions of dollars over decades, always trying to buy peace. And my argument is that it generally doesn't work, that there are unintended consequences. These things backfire. They come back to haunt us. So I think we should start off by defunding both sides. I'm just not for giving all this money, because every time there are civilians killed on the Israeli side or civilian killed on the Palestinian side, you can be assured that either our money was used directly or indirectly to do that killing. So we are, in a way, an accomplice on all this because we fund both sides.
And it's so true. You can say the exact same thing about the most recent attack. Either way, we fund both sides. If the weaponry used in the attack was truly from Afghanistan or Ukraine, as is rumored to be, but again, the fog of war, it could come out months later that this was something different, weapon-wise. But it certainly appears that way right now. We're funding both sides. We're funding both sides. And that's the worst part about this whole thing. We try to do things in the name of peace, do things in the name of security, and we do neither. We do neither. Ron Paul continued on in this speech that I found, and I've always liked Ron Paul, but he says our Middle East policy, the policy that we have in the Middle East, has always been doomed to fail. And he's saying this 22 years ago in 2001, but it rings true today.
We have a policy that is doomed to fail in the Middle East. And it fails slowly and persistently, always drawing us in, always demanding more money. With the Arabs, we can't tell the Arabs to get lost. The Arabs are important. They have a lot of oil over there. I mean, we can't flaunt the Arabs and say, get lost. We must protect our oil. It's called our oil. And at the same time, there's a strong constituency for never offending Israel. I think that you can't buy peace under those circumstances. I think that we can contribute to being more neutral. I think we can contribute a whole lot by being friends with both sides. But I believe the money is wasted. It's spent unwisely. And it actually does not serve the interests of the American people. First, it costs us money. That means that we have to take this money from the American taxpayer. And second, it doesn't achieve the peace that we all hope to have.
And he makes some good points. Now, I will point out this is from 2001, and I don't know if the let's be friends with both sides argument applies today. But I ask you this question. What does it serve the interest of the American people to get involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict? I heard Dan's show on the way in, and he's absolutely right. We're already funding the Israeli army. We're already funding the Israeli government. We send them tons of aid every year, and I totally get that. We're already buying weapons for this conflict. Then you look at the flip side. We've already bought weapons for the conflict on the other side too. So, awesome. We're funding both sides. What interest does it serve the American people to get involved in this conflict any heavier than we are? I'll take your answers on the super text line, 615-737-9986. It's the Chris Hand Show. We got more audio from Ron Paul, also more from the Trump rally in New Hampshire on the way for you. Plus, Tucker had Vivek Ramaswamy on his show last night.
Ooh.
And I don't know. I like Vivek again.
We're back.
We're not back.
Fully.
But he said a lot of good things.
Okay, good. Excited to hear it.
A lot of things that you're not going to hear from Nikki Haley or Lindsey Graham.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll hear from them as well. It is 9:21 on the Chris Hand Show. This is Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
got a crash right outside the studios here, 40 eastbound at Charlotte Avenue. That's exit 209. And we've got the continuing coverage of Israel at war with Hamas terrorists. Now a new death toll for Israel has been released. These stories and more at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 9:27 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love the super text line, and I love the pushback that I receive from you guys because I don't want this to be an echo chamber. I want it to be a conversation. So please, anytime you disagree with me, feel free to text me why. And I'm not going to shout you down because I think your opinions are just as valid as mine. 615-737-9986. I got a text from 7781. And it says, you're getting hard to listen to. There are a lot of Americans over there. Talk about Israel, obviously. In the middle of that, imagine if your children were there. And then let us know if it would be any business of the United States to get involved. I have a loved one who is caught right in the middle, who can't get out now. We don't even know if he's still alive. And to that, I say I'm sorry that your family member is stuck over there. I hope that everything works out for you and your family. And I honestly do believe that. However, we're already funding Israel to the tune of billions a year. I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have a right to defend themselves. I'm saying that Israel already has the means, capability, and capacity to handle this threat that they're dealing with. And they can handle this threat that they're dealing with without us getting involved. I had another texter who said to me, you need to read your Bible. I heard you talking about using the Bible this morning. Read your Bible. You know, God won't turn his back on Israel. And I said, I'm not against supporting Israel. Like, diplomatically, morally, that's great. And in fact, we already do support Israel, again, to the tune of billions of dollars a year. But they can handle this conflict. And if you want to push on me about the Bible, it's like, get the speck out of your eye first, right? We have so many problems in this country that needs our attention. And I'm operating from the standpoint that Israel already has this threat handled. Their military is strong enough. If we found ourselves in a position where Israel is weakened and they're going to be run over by Hamas, we can have a different conversation at that point. But I don't think that they need our help. In fact, I think it's a little insulting the way people act like their military isn't strong and isn't able to do this. Like they're more than capable. More than capable. 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
$9:30 on the dot this Tuesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and looks like they have cleaned up that crash just outside the studios here, eastbound 40 at Demonbreun. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Israel at war, continuing coverage. Violence escalating since Hamas attacked Israel, starting this war over the weekend. Israel says it has at least 1,000 of its citizens dying since that attack over the weekend by Hamas. Hamas claims its death toll in Gaza stands at 700. President Biden addresses the nation today at noon, Middle Tennessee time. Right now in our nation's capital, Republicans still have to decide whether Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan will be their next speaker, or some are signaling they might still vote for Kevin McCarthy on the floor, no matter who wins the conference's nomination tomorrow. And the food service research company Data Central estimates that more than 79,000 eateries, about 10% of the nation's total, were permanently closed down by the government during the pandemic. But a new look at data from the Census Bureau reveals that monthly restaurant sales have rebounded and actually surpassed pre-pandemic figures. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. they're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up, because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
Hey, it's Chris Hand for Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling. Now, I know it can be so hard to find somebody you trust with these large home repairs. And of course, that includes heating and cooling. I mean, have you seen the price on an HVAC lately? It's a tough decision. Now, one of the parts that's hard about this is that the other guys are going to tell you, got to replace the whole unit. And do you know if you have to replace the whole unit or not? Of course not. If you knew, you wouldn't be calling an HVAC guy. So you got to have someone you trust, and the guy that you need to call is Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. Now, because they're a small company with big service, Jeff and his crew will do what's right, and they have proved it time and time again. Now, when those other guys pressure you to replace your system, Jeff and his crew will walk you through every option scenario so that way you can make an informed decision. Because most companies are going to pressure you to replace that system because they make more money that way. With Jeff and his crew, hey, if they can get you by with a cheap part and that is going to fix your problem, they are happy to explain that for you. Plus, with Efficient, they offer up to 18 months, same as cash financing on your next unit. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Go to efficienthvac.net or call 615-784-4424.
I don't think there's anyone defending the murder of concert goers in the Negev 2 days ago is, disqualified from, being taken seriously. Yeah. Of course, that's wrong. But it doesn't seem like any American policymaker is even willing to entertain other questions like what's in America's best interest, what effect will this have on the global economy, on our economy, on energy prices. These are not small things. They should not be dismissed, but they are dismissed out of hand. And you're some sort of quizzling if you even raise the question. Why is that? It seems crazy to me.
It does seem crazy, but it seems like that's where we are. 9:38 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Again, I feel the need to reset because I do get a lot of pushback. I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have the right to defend themselves. In fact, I hope they do. I hope something like what happened to them over the weekend never happens again. But I think that they can do all of that without us getting involved in another forever war. One of the issues that I have is it was not even 24 hours later. The dust hadn't settled, which is it's still not settled. We're still in the fog of war. But not 24 hours later, Lindsey Graham is hitting the news cycles saying we need to bomb Iran. Got to get Iran. And I'm not for that. I'm not for more forever wars in the Middle East. And it seems like that's where we're headed. Our Middle East foreign policy has been failures for decades. Decades. Yet here we are. It seems like we're slow walking right now down to another Middle East conflict. Is that what you're interested in? Let me know on the text line, 615-737-9986. And our phone lines are back working as well, 615-737-9986. So Tucker had an interview last night with Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm not a huge Vivek fan. I'm not, and I've made those reasons clear. But he said a lot of right things. But it wasn't really Vivek that I was more interested in. It was when Tucker kind of went and called out some of these neocons like Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham. Now, he called out Nikki Haley for her saying, we need to finish them, like she was playing Mortal Kombat. Finish them. And I remember hearing that live and thinking, not the route I would take. Just
not the Mortal Kombat route. That's not.
I wouldn't.
Gotcha.
Not, not how I would have said it.
Slay them.
But like you can say Israel has every right to defend themselves and still not seemingly be advocating for genocide and war in the Middle East to just break out on a mass scale. Like, is that, can we do both? I don't know. It gets harder these days. But Tucker did bring up Nikki Haley saying just that, and that was on his Twitter show last night.
Watch this person, for example, who happens to be the media's pick for president of the United States.
I will say this. I'm not sure Nikki Haley is the media's pick. Maybe the media likes her. As my wife would say, she has boss mom hair. But I'm not sure that she's the media's pick. But anyway, he's calling her out for this clip.
This is not just an attack on Israel. This is an attack on America because they hate us just as much. And what we have to understand is this is the reason that we have to unite around making sure our enemies do not hurt our friends. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends, just like we needed them on 9/11. That's why Ukraine needs us when Russia's doing this. That's why Israel needs us when Hamas and Iran are doing this. And I'll say this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them. They should have hell to pay for what they've just done.
I mean, does that sound like a serious person? Do you want your president of the United States to be running around going, finish them? I can't with these people. Like, Nikki Haley's not serious. I got a text from her last night because she wanted like $1 for her campaign.
Man, she's obsessed with you. She just can't.
He said she's you're such a tool. But I mean, the Mortal Kombat of the situation.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them.
But is Iran behind it? Probably. But it seems like we do need to wait before we're just down to go launch full-scale war in the Middle East. And ask the questions, how does that benefit American interests? Can we ask those questions first? Tucker had a great retort on Nikki Haley as well.
This was an attack on America, she says, when in fact it was not. And for that reason, we must, quote, finish Iran, a nation of nearly 90 million people. What are we watching here? This is not sober leadership. She's a child, and this is the tantrum of a child, ignorant, cocksure, bloodthirsty. Yet no one in Washington scolded her for it. In fact, they aped her hysteria.
Yeah, nobody calls Nikki Haley on this kind of rhetoric. It's totally fine as long as you're backing the military-industrial complex. I mean, I see your text, 8212. Nikki Haley is as much a war hawk as Graham. You're absolutely right. Christopher Murfreesboro, you have a comment on Iran. What's up, man? You're on Super Talk.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the call.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's important to put this in a little bit of context as well. I mean, if Israel wants help, do they not reach out to the United Nations for this? I mean, is this not a UN issue first before it becomes our issue? Like you say, we are giving them monetary and military support, but then, like, for example, if there's a hurricane and it hits Florida governor has to reach out to FEMA in order for FEMA even to help that state, even though it's our own state. They have to reach out. So I think we need, especially with the tension that's overseas in general, I feel like we need to be really, really careful about offering any kind of military solutions.
Well, I mean, we're already sending over aircraft carriers, and like you mentioned and I've mentioned, we're funding them already, and I think that they have every right to defend themselves. I just don't want to get into another 20-year war with the Middle East.
Someone attacks you, you defend yourself. Someone breaks in your home, you defend yourself.
100%.
I mean, that's what you do.
100%. You're absolutely right. Hey, thanks for the call, Chris. Really appreciate you, man.
Take care.
You know, but we have so many problems at home. So many. Our cities look like zombie apocalypses. And Nikki Haley goes on TV and just starts shouting, finish them. Finish them.
Like she's in like a Call of Duty party or something.
Like, yeah, that's going to win you some votes.
Yeah.
Like, people say the thing about Trump with mean tweets, but like, does anybody think a Nikki Haley yelling finish them on Fox News is going to win over a moderate? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that mushy moderate's watching that. Yeah, that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, you know what? As a matter of fact, Nikki Haley's right. We should finish them. I keep getting called. I keep getting a text from 9849. Neville Chamberlain is hosting from 9 to 12 on WTN, everyone.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep, thanks. If you don't know who Neville Chamberlain
I had to
is,
look it up.
You can do your own research. You're Googling the mean text that we get about me during the show?
Not defending you.
You're not defending me. You're just reading it and then Googling it? Is that what
And then
you're
I'm
doing?
like, oh, yeah, I guess he is here.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Mac. Thanks. Thought we were bros.
But on a serious note, Chris, you're talking about the problems we have at home. I saw a text at the beginning of the show here when you're talking about, the just being over inundated with information right now on this Israel and Iran story and hearing nothing else. 3362 said, am I wrong to feel triggered by the continued updates and outpouring information? Yet so much information was choked in Hawaii.
100%.
I mean, yeah.
It's such a good point. And it's like there's so many conflicts around the world at any given time. Why don't we hear about neighboring countries in Africa having a conflict?
Yep.
It doesn't reach the same levels of hysteria. And I understand that there's different levels of hysteria involved in this because of where it's taking place. But come on. Can we really look at this through the lens of like, let's calm down and figure out A, what happened, B, what our move is, and then also what could be the repercussions of our next move? Because that's the key.
Bingo.
That's so we don't land in the world of unintended consequences. Neville Chamberlain. Richard in Nashville, you have a comment on Iran. What's up, Richard? You're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, good morning, Brian. And you could not be more right with your comment. The unintended consequence come next. First thing I asked myself when I saw that news this weekend was, why in the world would Hamas reach out and punch the big guy in the room in the nose? Mm-hmm. And it really reeks to me of just trying to drag us into this conflict against Islam. That's their ultimate goal, is a religious war, and they just want to be. This is a chess match, and we just have to treat it like such.
Yeah, no, and that's what they're doing as well. They would love for us to get dragged in, stretched more thin, and then probably do something like activate sleeper cells that are already within our country, coming over our porous southern border. That. Thanks for the call, Richard. I really appreciate it. It feels like that would be the next move. Activate some sleeper cells, and it really boils down to the fact that we have the lousiest leadership in the world. Is there anybody with worse leadership than America right now? Canada. All right. We have the second worst leadership in the world. That was pretty quick.
That was so quick.
Now I'm starting to think like I could come up with a longer list.
I was about to say, if that's all that took.
I could probably come up with a longer list. Top 5 worst leadership in the world. I read a tweet from Jack Posobiec that he got some intel from a White House staffer. He says, Biden keeps bringing up Ukraine during briefings on Israel. He's getting the two wars mixed up. Austin, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, barely showing up to them anymore. Blinken making more decisions than anyone. Antony, the guy that needs an H in his name. He's the one calling the shots now. Does that make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside? I know it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Rudy, who's hanging on the line, I'll get to your call next. Anybody else want to chime in on this? You are more than welcome to 615-737-9986. More of your calls and texts next on The Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, it's Chris Hand from my friends at Paul Winkler, Inc. Now, when you have 4 kids and a wonderful wife, you have to start planning ahead for the future. And I always try to think long term. And with my financial planning, we weren't thinking long term. And, we start having these kids, and now we're thinking about weddings, college if they want it. And this long-term financial plan becomes much more important. And I'm so glad I got to link up with Paul and his team. And now Paul and his team hold themselves to a higher level of fiduciary standard than is required. And because of that, government regulators require that I tell you I'm paid every time this commercial airs. And that's honestly the truth. I am. I get paid to do these commercials But I don't get paid to be a client of Paul's, and I'm a client of Paul's because I got to sit down with Paul, meet him, talk to him, and have him explain to me the decisions I need to make in a way that I can understand. It's one of the areas in my life that I was lacking, that education. But Paul and his team provide investment education that is evidence-based and backed by Nobel Prize-winning research. And one of the biggest things that I always stress, nothing Paul's team does is done on commission. They don't get paid on commission. So you can be sure when they're helping you make your financial decisions, they're making them for you, not for themselves. You can't buy that kind of confidence. Every office is run by a degree planner with over 20 years of experience. You can feel the difference between Paul's team and the rest because that experience equals confidence. So do what I did. Talk to one of his team members. Set up a complimentary 15-minute phone call right now on his website, paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com or call 615-851-1950.
We'll continue our coverage of Israel at war. Now concern of a second front possibly opening up. This story and more at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you for the updates, Ken Weaver. It is 9:57 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Rudy's been waiting on the line very patiently. What's up, Rudy? You're on Super Talk 99.7.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the hair should be standing up on the back of our leadership and government's necks to shut down the border and, not allow any more people in, because we have no idea who's come across that border.
Well, to be fair, we do know that some of them were on the terror watch list.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for correcting me.
It doesn't make me feel any better.
After seeing what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
It doesn't make me feel any better, but no, you go.
After seeing what happened to Israel's border in the South, how ironic, in the South, we should be terrified, literally terrified. And for people to jump up there and say we need to continue to support them with anything other than what we're already doing is just madness. And I think, trying to get into a war seems a higher priority than just, the side effect of America being strong is that people won't mess with us. That's the side effect. You don't have to support everybody. If we had, all you got to do is look at what Trump was doing in the Middle East before he lost the presidency. He already had the Abraham Accords going on.
Yep.
Countries that had never wanted to have any kind of peace agreements or even do business with Israel, he was able to forge relationships through that. And this is just crazy.
People come to the table when you invite them, and when you start greasing the wheels with good old capitalism, it usually tends to work out. And Trump had that down. Thanks for the call, Rudy. I really appreciate it. And to Rudy's point about, when you're strong, people don't mess with you. Trump told Putin if he took Ukraine, he would nuke Moscow. They said, did they believe you? He said, 5%. But that was enough. Seriously, just can we get 5% back? Just 5%. It's 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Ken Weaver's got the latest for you on WTN.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We'll tell you about the warm-up underway and the changes that are going to come. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Israel at war, continuing coverage.
President Biden preparing to address the nation in a few hours on the situation in Israel. The violence escalating, the death toll at least 1,600 on both sides. And as ABC's Matt Gutman reports from a town along the Gaza border, fears of a ground assault are growing.
300,000 Israeli reservists flooding the fields around Gaza. It's the largest and quickest call-up in Israel's history. Armored personnel carriers cutting through the dust to the border with Gaza. Roads clogged with tank carriers. Reservists huddled at gas stations. The Israeli military telling me the immediate goal to strip Hamas of military capabilities.
At least 11 Americans among the hostages, and says National Security Council spokesman John Kirby.
We're preparing for the very distinct possibility that there will be more unfortunate, more death for American citizens here. We also have a number of Americans we know are wounded, and another number which keeps changing that are unaccounted for.
Sherry Preston reporting President Biden's address to the nation scheduled for noon, Middle Tennessee time. Here in Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee says the state continues to stand in unwavering support and solidarity with Israel. Flags ordered half-staff over the state capitol through Friday. Right now in our nation's capital, Republicans huddled tonight to hear from the two declared House Speaker candidates. Tennessee 7th District Congressman Mark Green tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News Israel being at war with Hamas terrorists shouldn't be a factor.
I don't think we should rush it, though. If neither of those guys can get to 218, somebody else throws their name in the hat.
As it stands today, the conference is split between Majority Leader Steve Scalise and Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
10:05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, good morning. It's Chris Hand. Mac Morey is producing. Ken Weaver is in the newsroom. And you, the most important member of our crew on the Super Text line and the phone lines at 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. I was playing some audio from Tucker last night. And I just really like Tucker. I'm a big fan. And he kind of echoed a lot of what I was saying yesterday. Can we stop doing these forever wars? And why does it always seem like these neocons come out the loudest whenever we have a chance at war in the Middle East? You know, Lindsey Graham wants us to go bomb Iran's oil refineries. Tucker brought up the clip that I saw over the weekend on Fox News, which was like less than 24 hours after everything had gone down. And Lindsey Graham was on Newsmax last night echoing the exact same thing. You know, I have visions of John McCain dancing in my head yelling, bomb, 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 bomb Iran. And I'm just, ugh. Like, can we hang tight and figure out what happened? Israel can defend themselves without us having to go after Iran. But if you didn't hear the Lindsey Graham quote, this is that.
Here's fellow neocon Lindsey Graham just spelling it out and calling for the bombing of Iran.
So I've been on the phone all day to the Mideast, and I've told our allies and people with connections to Iran what I would do. I would tell Iran that if Hezbollah attacks Israel, we're going to come after you, the Iranians, and have a coordinated effort between the United States and Israel to put Iran out of the oil business by destroying their refineries. There are 4 major refineries in Iran. They're fixed targets. If Hezbollah attacks Israel, I would make Iran pay a heavy price.
So that's Lindsey Graham. He's just pushing for war. He didn't waste any time. Doesn't even want to know how the intelligence failure happened. He's just, let's go get Iran. And the craziest part to me is Lindsey Graham, I mean, can we go after the Biden administration for giving Iran $6 billion? You know, the Biden administration could freeze that money. They say that Iran hasn't spent it yet. But they're not going to. We all know that. But Lindsey Graham doesn't criticize the Biden administration much for that. He's more focused on his boys at Lockheed and Raytheon and getting them another big payday, it feels like. At least that's what it feels like to me. Maybe I'm wrong. This is what Tucker thought of Lindsey Graham's comments.
What exactly would happen to the United States if we declared war on Iran and started blowing up their infrastructure? Lindsey Graham has no clue what would happen. He hasn't thought it through. He's almost 70 years old and he has no children. He doesn't care.
That's a big point right there. Lindsey Graham is 70 years old and he has no children. Do you think he's really worried too much about the future of the country? No. He's worried about the here and the now, and he's not thinking long term. That's an issue.
But neither, amazingly, do most of his colleagues in Washington. They're as reckless as he is. Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw took to social media to call for what he described as a war to end all wars, as if there is such a thing.
Dan Crenshaw, living up to the Eye Patch McCain nickname.
But of course, there isn't such a thing. Wars beget more war. The bigger the conflict, the uglier and longer lasting the consequences. See World War I for details. These are not complex observations, but they seem lost on our leadership class.
He's absolutely right. This isn't rocket science. This isn't something that you have to be a genius to think about. But these are real issues that we're being emotionally manipulated into supporting a war overseas with no plan. And it seems like none of our leadership has any plans. Biden sure as heck didn't have a plan when he released $6 billion to the Iranians. So on both sides, there's no plan. There's no plan. Dave in Hendersonville, what are your thoughts on the current situation happening right before our eyes? Dave, you're on Super Talk.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, what's up?
Lindsey Graham is an idiot. I used to like him, but I kind of figured out that he's only for himself, and that's it. He pops off with stuff. But really, what I called for, I seen something last night, really teed me off on TV, and it also got me thinking that about a very likely scenario that could be happening or getting ready to happen here in the United States. And watching the news, New York, California, and all these Palestinians who was out protesting, saying that what happened in Israel was great. They backed them. They said seen people say they got what they deserved. Well, there was some fertilizer last year taken off of a train. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah, I do remember that story, and I get where you're going with it, Dave. It's the thought of sleeper cells and the fact that we have a wide open southern border.
People coming across this border that we know nothing about.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and thanks for the call, Dave. But we do know a little bit about them. We know that they were on the terror watch list. We know that. But this is where I'm at, too. It seems like we have so many issues here at home that we are no longer focusing on. Drew in Mount Eagle, you say that this is a Israel spiritual is what I have on my call screen. Fill me in, Drew. Where are you at on this whole thing?
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to call and defend you against the Christians that are bashing you, telling you that you need to read your Bible. Well, I would challenge them. They need to read theirs, and mainly the book of Revelation, starting in chapter 4, verse 2, because the worst is yet to come for Israel for what they did to Jesus Christ on the cross. This is all part of the end times. I think we really need to focus on our own problems here in America, basically in the church house, because Revelation chapter 3, the church of Laodicea, which is what we are in right now, we're rich, increased with goods, and in need of nothing. And we're wanting to try and go fix somebody else's problems, that it's something that's just going to happen as it is. We can support them monetarily. We support them in prayer. But guess what? It's all going to happen no matter what we do. We need to focus on our own spiritual health, because the Bible tells you it's high time to come out of your sleep, church, and we need to focus on the end time because the Lord is coming soon. That's all I got, Chris. Thank you.
I appreciate the call, Drew. Thanks so much. I agree with a lot of what Drew said. I do push back on the end time stuff and Revelation. I feel like you can go through any time in history and point to a group of people who felt like it was the end time. I'm sure during World War II, people felt that way. I'm sure during World War I, people felt that way. I mean, go down the list. But a lot of what Drew said is right. We have so many problems here that we need to focus on first. And I think that that's something that we need to actually do. Focus on our problems here first. Vivek Ramaswamy was also on with Tucker last night. And he said there is a question that no one is asking about this whole situation.
I mean, what happened against Israel? You said it, I believe it. It is barbaric. It is medieval. It is wrong. And Israel as a nation absolutely has the right to self-defense, to its own national existence. And I think they should have our moral and diplomatic support as an ally. But there's one element of this that nobody's talking about. What the hell went wrong with U.S. and Israeli intelligence?
What went wrong with U.S. and Israeli intelligence? We're not asking that question yet. We don't have the answers to that yet. But I think we need to find out.
And the Israeli defense that allowed this to happen. Everybody seems to be punting that as a question for later. I think it's a question for now, if you're Israel. I mean, look, I think that Nikki Haley I disagree with you a little bit there. I don't think she's a child. I think that she is somebody who is, like many politicians, in a position to get wealthier from war. Look at the military contracting business and otherwise. But put that to one side. The message that I would send would be very different. Get to the bottom of what allowed this gaping hole of intelligence and defense to even happen before feeding that same beast. If a doctor told you his job was to keep you from getting cancer and then you got that cancer, don't go trust that same doctor to remove your tumor. They don't let airplanes, when they crash, the pilots or the people who crash the airplane, that airliner is not the one who reviews the black box. And so I think those answers have to come now. That's not a question for later.
And I agree with Vivek. Let's get those answers now. Quickly. Can we get them quickly? Who am I kidding? We probably can't get them quickly. Will we get those answers? I don't know. But we can all agree we have so many problems here at home that we should be dealing with first. And we are, again, I want to point out, we are supporting Israel. We give them billions of dollars a year. I think it's at like $3.8 billion right now that we give them a year for defense, for infrastructure. And I feel like they can handle it themselves. It's not popular with a lot of people. It's not, unfortunately. A lot of people are very upset with me. I got a tweet 15 minutes ago from Steve in Tennessee. It says, that's it. I'm done with 99.7 until they do something with juvenile Chris Hand. Example, the straw man forever war trope. I mean, Steve, how do you not see this turning into another forever war? And show me an example of something that didn't turn into a forever war. I'm not sure how the call for patience and seeing what happened is juvenile. I prefer to think that being manipulated via emotion and launching yourselves into a full-scale conflict with Iran before we know even what happened to intelligence on the ground would be juvenile. You know, when my kids get mad at each other, they lash out and will do what kids do because they're not thinking too far into the future. And I say that we need to refrain from making that same mistake. No matter what Nikki Haley tells you, no matter what Lindsey Graham tells you, no matter what it seems like all of Mockingbird Media is telling you, we need to slow down. We need to slow down. 0994. Muslims are really big on anniversary battles. How could they miss the 50-year anniversary of the 73 war? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know how you let your defenses down on that day. And many people are asking what went wrong, but we don't have those answers. We don't. And it seems like you're not even allowed to ask those questions. You can't ask what's in America's best interest.
Watch this person, for example, who happens to be...
You're not allowed to. This is Tucker last night with Vivek Ramaswamy talking about how you can't ask questions like what's in America's best interest.
I don't think there's anyone defending the murder of concert goers in the Negev 2 days ago is, disqualified from, being taken seriously. Yeah. Of course, that's wrong. But it doesn't seem like any American policymaker is even willing to entertain other questions like what's in America's best interest, what effect will this have on the global economy, on our economy, on energy prices. These are not small things. They should not be dismissed, but they are dismissed out of hand, and you're some sort of quizzling if you even raise the question. Why is that? It seems crazy to me.
It does seem crazy. Joe, on line 2, you have a thought on Iran. What's up, Joe? You're on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Chris, and to refresh my memory a little bit, how you doing today?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I'm blessed. I was just giving Mac a hard time.
American-centric.
I still think we need to boycott Tay-Tay, but not the Chiefs necessarily. I'm a Titan fan. Long and short of it is, didn't China just have a big to-do with Iran not long ago, 6 to 8 weeks ago? And before that, it was Russia, and then they were moving with Cuba to build an industrial complex over in Cuba. I mean, if they had a meeting with Iran and then all this gets stirred up, we move a battleship and a carrier away from Taiwan north to Israel. I mean, I'd be suspicious as to think that we're not going to see something happen in the Cuba area. And you're talking about the southern border. They've already documented 19 to 25-year-old Chinese crossing that border down there. I think it's a lot more orchestrated than we think. Japan did the same thing in Pearl Harbor. China also has a lot of technology, surveillance technology and things like that. So, I mean, thus the balloons. What if they're involved in, telling Hamas, get off the grid, don't let them hear your conversations, and then do this? It'll pull America north. We can do what we need to do in Taiwan and Cuba. I mean, I don't know. It's just.
No, I mean, I think you're on the right wavelength of asking those questions, and I think that those are questions that need to be asked. To your first point, it was the 21st of August. China brokered a Saudi-Iran deal driving wave of reconciliation. So they brought Saudi Arabia and Iran together. China did, and yet to your other point, China is building military installations in Cuba. And yes, they've had Chinese nationals coming across the southern border, and we've had Chinese police stations here in America. And that also goes to my point. We have so many issues here at home that we are just ignoring. And I'll take blame for it too. But it seems like the news is being dominated by this Israel conflict with Hamas.
We really just need to be on guard and prepare ourselves before we jump into anything like you were saying, knee-jerk. Prepare ourselves and make sure that we've got all the angles covered, because I think it's more of an orchestrated plan. I mean, it goes to what the caller before was talking about as far as the religious aspect of it, Revelations and the end times game with the rumors of wars, and we get spread too thin. I mean, all they have to do, they already have us outnumbered. We work with unions in the shipyards. I built ships up in Maine after I got out of the Navy at Bath Iron Works, and we work with unions. I mean, it's a big joke up there with all the employees. It's called hide and seek for $1,000 a week. I mean, they do as minimal amount of work as they can to keep getting that paycheck, and they don't want to ever get ahead of the work. Over in China, it's ordered work, and they're putting out way more ships than we are on a continuous basis. It's craziness.
No, it is. It is crazy. Thanks for the call, Joe. I really appreciate it. Hey, we do have to jump into a break. I got more of your calls and texts on the other side. It is 10:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, it's Chris from my friends at USS, United Structural Systems. Now, like you, before I started working here at Super Talk, I heard their commercials on Super Talk for years. And recently, I had them over to my house to look at my crawl space and come up with a plan to encapsulate it. Now, here's the thing. The guys at USS, they'll make a custom plan for your house just like they did for my house. And the process is so easy. I mean, I basically just greeted the guy in the driveway and let him get to work, and then he showed me my options. And you can do the same thing, but here's the thing. In this line of work, you don't know you need it until you know you need it. That's what the guys at USS told me, and they're so true. Had I not poked my head down in my crawl space that day, I wouldn't have known that I needed the guys at USS to come through and help me out with a full encapsulation. But you should do yourself a favor. Poke your head down in your crawl space. Are you noticing any standing water? Do you have any wet basement walls, cracks in your basement floors? If you do, that's your house trying to tell you something. And if your house is trying to tell you something, give the guys at United Structural Systems a call to check it out. 615-488-7855. 615-488-7855. They have 25,000 satisfied customers in Middle Tennessee, and I am confident that you will be number 25,001 if you call USS today. 615-488-7855, or everything you need to know is online, USSTN.com.
Israel at war, continuing coverage. We have new numbers, also new threats. Details at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. It is 10:27 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Real quick, we got Dwayne on line one. Oh, never mind. Sorry, Dwayne is not there. Mac, what are you doing to me?
Sorry, Dwayne and I are having a personal convo.
Oh. On work hours? All right. Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know that's what you're doing on the clock.
The fans just need more of me. That's it, you know.
Is that what? Okay. People want more Mac. Mac is like cowbell. You just can't get enough. We do have more of your calls on the flip side at 615-737-9986. We got audio from Trump in New Hampshire yesterday. Have you heard any of the Trump in New Hampshire audio? I mean, he says the things that we're all thinking, like how we're staring down the barrel of World War III with Joe Biden in charge. You want to give me some audio, Mac? I know you're on a personal call, but...
Serious, we are in very, very grave danger of having a World War III. And this will be a war of obliteration. This will not be a war with, I say, army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. This is the real deal. And we have a man that he can't even walk off a stage. He walks off a stage. He finishes his speech. He looks, oh, well, he can't find. He has no idea. You know, there's always a stair there, a stair here. You could even walk off the front, jump or something, do something. He usually walks to the back into a wall. Yeah.
It's 10:29 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the latest headful of headlines for you right now on Super Talk.
.30 on the dot this Tuesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We'll tell you about this warm-up before the big change comes during the full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now, Israel at war, continuing coverage. Israel continued bombing Hamas terrorist sites in Gaza overnight. Meanwhile, David Muir is in Tel Aviv.
The numbers here in Israel are just staggering, more than 900 dead, but the toll there in Gaza rising as well, more than 700 dead. And other concern here, the activity on the Lebanon border now with Israel as well. Real concern over Hezbollah and whether or not this could potentially become a wider conflict here.
President Biden scheduled to address the nation today at noon, Middle Tennessee time. Right now in our nation's capital, House Republicans set to hold a candidate forum today as they attempt to get a new House Speaker in place. A vote could be held as soon as tomorrow. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
10:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Talking all things Israel, neocons, warmongering, Hamas. It seems like it's the most dominant topic of the day. There is some other stuff going on. Did you hear that Joe Biden was interviewed over the classified documents?
What did he say?
Man.
Could we understand him?
No, apparently he was interviewed for 2 days. Hold on. I got to pull up the story. I'm behind a paywall because the Washington Post is doing it, and I got to log in and do all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's
2 days.
So he got interviewed over 2 days. All right, listen to this.
Lots
Ready?
of nap time.
Lots of naps. Yeah, there was multiple naps in between. All right, so he was interviewed about classified documents found at his home. Special counsel Robert Hur, who has been investigating for months, conducted the interview of the president. A person familiar with the situation said. President Biden was interviewed over the last 2 days as part of the investigation led by a special counsel into the discovery of classified documents at the Biden's private office and Delaware home, a White House spokesman said Monday night. So he was interviewed Sunday and Monday. The voluntary interview, I love how they put that in there. The voluntary interview. Dude, he basically came to Robert.
Yeah.
He said, hey, Rob, got some things I want to tell you.
Got to get some things off my chest.
The Corvette's green. He said, the voluntary interview was conducted at the White House over 2 days, Sunday and Monday, concluded Monday. That's from Ian Sams, White House spokesman. He said in a statement, Ian Sams, low T soy boy. He said, as we have said from the beginning, the president and the White House are cooperating with this investigation, and it has been appropriate. We have provided relevant updates publicly, being as transparent as we can, consistent with protecting and preserving the integrity of the investigation. We would refer other questions to the Justice Department at this time. So, he's being interviewed over classified documents voluntarily, while, he's also setting up time to meet with his national security team to talk about what's happening in Israel. I feel like he could have rescheduled, right? I mean, he didn't reschedule the barbecue. Maybe that's just the Biden way. If it's on the schedule, it's on the schedule.
I've committed, man.
Like, I've already said yes. Nothing is going to change my plans.
Had the brisket in the oven for 8 hours overnight. You think I'm bailing now?
I'm not going to turn off the crock pots.
Golly.
It's just terrible. But this is where we're at in 2023. Not how I expected things to go. Jonathan Turley also released a column in The Hill on the exposure of the Biden family and its long-standing influence peddling. Now, he covers newly released evidence from the House Committee on Ways and Means, revealing how $20 million came from 23 separate countries on 4 continents to at least 9 Biden family members. So not only are the Biden transfers becoming clear, so is the Biden family tree and this lucrative form of corruption. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was just a coincidence, right? Mac, your family has 23 shell companies.
Of course.
Set up.
At least.
Money coming in from all over the place. Me too. It's American as apple pie. Who doesn't have shell companies?
Baseball, apple pie, and multiple shell companies.
Yes, literally. That's it. That's the American way. Baseball, apple pie, and shell companies. That's classic. Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, so that's like the latest on the Biden crime family. They're still committing crimes and doing nothing for the country. President Trump, the last real president that we had, was in New Hampshire yesterday, and he says what we're all thinking. Crooked Joe puts everyone first but America.
Crooked Joe puts China first. He puts Mexico first, Ukraine first, Europe first, Asia first, illegal aliens first, environmental lunatics and maniacs first. These are maniacs, these people. I don't know if they really believe it or is it just something to hurt our country. But everyone else is first. But he puts America last. He puts our workers last. He puts our industries last. He puts your families last. He puts everybody last. Everything that's good, he puts last.
Everything that's good, he puts last. Where's the lie? A super texter pointed out, and I've said it before. Geez, I wish I could find it. Oh, yeah. Heather texted in. Everything we were warned would happen under Trump's leadership is actually happening under Biden's, but the left won't see it or admit it.
Bingo.
Bingo. Yep.
Trump was right, and Joe Biden was wrong.
I mean, I think that boils it down to it. Thank you, Jake Tapper. They're blinded by Orange Man bad. This is how we are. But they told us the adults were back in town when Joe Biden took over. Okay. Just sleazy scumbag adults. They didn't say what kind of adults.
Yeah, they didn't clarify.
They didn't specify. So, also 8957 texted in about Joe Biden's voluntary interview with Robert Hur. He says, voluntary just means no waterboarding. Okay. Good to know. Thank you, 8957, for clarifying. 6447 says, dang, I knew I was missing something. I need shell companies.
Shell companies. No.
Listen, follow us for more investing tips. You need at least 20 shell companies if you want to plan for your future. Follow me on Instagram for more finance tips. You got to have more shell companies.
Got to get the shell companies.
I mean, especially with the prices of everything nowadays. Groceries are just ridiculous. You can't afford anything. Cars are just a new car. The average price is over $50K. And Trump mentioned this in New Hampshire. American families are being hit so hard right now. And they are. We're being slammed, it feels like, in every direction.
Most importantly, American families, because American families are being hit very hard. They've never had anything like this. The inflation, inflation is called a country buster. It busts countries. You look at Germany from many years ago, you look at anywhere inflation comes, it doesn't have to be now, it could be 200 years ago. Where they had inflation, they had broken countries. And we're very close to a broken country. We're also very close to a country that's going to be in a third world war because we have an incompetent president.
We do have an incompetent president. It does feel like we're trending towards a third world war, and it definitely feels like this inflation is going to crush the country. I mean, could you imagine trying to buy a home right now? I almost moved to Arizona with my family. We decided not to. When this opportunity became available, it was a good fit. We didn't want to. Yeah, thank you. We didn't want to leave Tennessee.
Glad you're here.
Me too. But had we sold our house in Murfreesboro and bought an exact same house, dollar for dollar, same price in Arizona, A, it would have been smaller. B, it would have cost us more because of interest rates. Like it would have been like 20 grand more a year just because of interest rates.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It's painful.
That's nuts.
They're like, you can buy down your interest rate and cut a deal. It's like, that sounds terrible. So I just have to pay more interest later.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah. Oh, this doesn't sound like a plan. It's like, Trump is right. Can you play that one more time?
Trump was right, and Joe Biden was wrong.
Yeah, so Trump was right. And we're staring down the barrel of World War III. And this situation in Israel isn't going to make that any less of a reality. And as soon as we jump in and get involved, others are going to jump in and get involved. And I think the best course of action right now is to wait. Dan in Murfreesboro, you have it seems like a different idea. Iran nuke is what I have on the call screen info for you.
I went to school with Iranians. I went to engineering school, and they're very smart people. And I don't believe that they don't have one. They just had too long to work on it. And I know they've had some bad problems, but, if you can sneak in thousands of rockets, why couldn't you sneak in a nuclear weapon to Gaza? And then when the IDF comes in to kill everybody, detonate it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's mutually assured destruction if you do that in Gaza. You know, you're
Well,
basically
but now
forfeiting.
Jordan wouldn't like it because I think the prevailing winds would finally take some of that stuff over to Jordan. But I think that's possible. And also, let's say there's no bomb there at all. The other bomb is a people bomb. It's over 1 million people. Are they going to go to Europe? Are they going to go to England? Are they going to come through the our southern border? I have read the Quran. I've read a lot of the Hadith. I've read the Sirah, and they're not doing anything that Muhammad didn't do or didn't approve of. And so these people are dangerous when they have the upper hand. They're like little kittens when they're in the minority, but the Hadith says to, play it cool when you don't have the upper hand, and then when you have the upper hand, use it.
No, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I still feel like Israel at this point in time can handle the conflict with Hamas, and they should.
Okay, but they've already had a failure of intelligence, and I'm saying that Iran, as people that can build bombs, they may already have it. I don't think they want the pressure of using it until they're ready. I mean, if they announced on Monday we've got a nuclear bomb, they would be under immense pressure to set it off on Tuesday.
But on the flip side, if they have it, they would feel pressure to use it anyway. So I just even us getting
that's why they don't say we've got it. They say we've almost got it. I think they've already got it.
Well, maybe they do, but we're also sold a bill of goods before we got into the Iraq war about weapons of mass destruction, and I think that we should let Israel handle the issue with Hamas and
what
Iran.
happened then may be similar to what happened now, but they don't interact logically. There's a different set of facts that make that either true or false. So I appreciate you letting me talk to you this morning.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the call, and I appreciate the other side of the aisle and different input. This show is better when it's not an echo chamber. We don't have to agree all the time. I just feel like if your argument is they already have a nuclear weapon, so we have to do something so they don't use the nuclear weapon. I don't know. Wouldn't you use the nuclear weapon in that case? Is that the whole point of having it? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Aaron in Hendersonville, you have a comment on Islam faith. Aaron, you're on Super Talk. What's up?
Well, everybody's missing the point. I mean, I don't know if they're missing the point, or maybe they just are basically not understanding that this is all in Iran's playbook, because back in 1984, they made the statement that they have to shed the blood to bring Muhammad back, and the only way to do it is to have World War III, and they will kill every single person in their country and every nation in the world to bring Muhammad back. And you cannot deal with terrorists. So no matter what we do, whether we get involved, we don't get involved, whatever, we already know how it ends depending on what faith you're living by. But
well, I mean, that can be true that that's their faith, but I still feel like let Israel handle it, because the minute that we jump in, it's like going to be a pig pile in there. Everybody's going to get involved.
Well, I agree. I mean, I totally agree. We should not get involved in the point that we put boots on the ground or anything like that. Give them the support that we can give the support to from the because Iran's been doing it for, 20 years, ever since Fatah became PLO. But the point of the matter is that, eventually, no matter what, we're going to be drawn into it. We're going to be drawn into the war. So, yeah, stay out as long as we can, but with an incompetent president as we have, keep giving them the money to Iran and all these other nations, why has not the United Nations cut off the funding to the Palestinian organizations? They haven't, and they're not going to. So all we're doing is flooding in money through third-party means.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely funding both sides. There's no question about that. And thanks for the call, Aaron. I mean, as far as World War III goes, everybody brings up World War III. It's like at this current state, we'd be screwed because China's not on our side. Who makes most of our medication? China. Where does the most of the manufacturing happen? China. Like we need to get more isolationist, more self-reliant, and less dependent on those around the world before we can even entertain who wins World War III. So I think the only move is to avoid World War III. I also got a text from my friend Tim. He says it's nuclear, not nuclear. So, sorry, Tim. Sorry. My bad, guys. It is 10:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Got a crash, right lane block, 65 southbound, right before Rosa Parks Boulevard. Israel at war. You got to hear what Israeli forces claim they found in one of the towns Hamas raided to start the war. These stories and more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 10:58 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Truth Social, at Chris Hand on air. Once again, I apologize to my friend Tim for pronouncing nuclear as nuclear. So
Bill 5196 texted in, Jimmy Carter and other presidents also incorrectly pronounced it as nuclear, so a Canadian has nothing to apologize for.
Oh, there it is. I'm just a simple-minded Canuck. I don't have not many thoughts but maple syrup up here and calling ham bacon. That's it. That's what we worry about. All right, on the way, I got John Kirby's interaction with Martha McCallum. We do have more audio of Trump in New Hampshire, plus a couple more cuts from the Tucker Vivek interview. Hang out with us. It is 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$11 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got that crash, right lane block 65 southbound right before Rosa Parks Boulevard in downtown Nashville. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Israel at war, continuing coverage. James Longman is in one of the Israeli towns which Hamas raided, which started it all.
Israel carrying out total siege of Gaza, cutting off power and blocking food and water from being delivered. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responding to this weekend's shocking attacks, saying what is done to our enemies in the coming days will resonate with them for generations. The IDF says at least 1,500 Hamas militants were found along the border, killed in fighting with Israeli forces since Saturday.
And President Biden scheduled to address the nation on the Israeli-Hamas conflict. That is scheduled for 1 hour from now. Right now in our nation's capital, 7th District Congressman Mark Green telling WTN's Nashville's Morning News the conflict between Israel and Hamas is no reason to hurriedly choose a House Speaker, since the War Powers Act gives a president 30 days before needing Congress to respond to crises.
We don't need to rush this speaker decision. We need to go through our process, hear from each of the candidates, and get to 218 votes before we go to the floor, because the debacle that happened in January doesn't need to happen again.
House holds hearings tonight and then votes tomorrow on the process by which to choose a new speaker, and could choose one as soon as tomorrow. Right now in Nashville, a hostage situation in Antioch that ended with a deadly officer-involved shooting is under investigation. This happening on Split Oak Trail. Metro Police Department spokesman Don Aaron says Joshua Kersey was reportedly holding a housemate hostage when he was shot by responding officers.
As the officers were focusing on this one bedroom where the door was closed, Kersey was inside with the knife, and he was yelling that he was going to harm the hostage if the police officers entered, that he would harm them as well.
TBI is investigating, and that's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
11:04 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mac Moore producing, Ken Weaver in the newsroom, and you are welcome to chime in on the Super Text line or the phone line, 615-737-9986. We've spent the majority of the show talking about Israel, our role in what's happening in Israel, and whether or not we should be involved at all. I've made my opinions pretty clear. I want to hear from you. I don't want the show to ever be an echo chamber. So dissenting opinions and counter arguments go right to the front. I'm always for that. So please feel free to chime in, 615-737-9986. Now, I did get a message from our friend Kevin, and he said he sent me this link from redstate.com. Are you familiar with redstate.com?
Yeah.
Okay, so it says horror. Israeli soldiers discover bodies of 40 babies, some beheaded. A mainline Israeli news station is reporting the bodies of 40 babies have been found in the town of Kfar Aza following the invasion by Hamas militants on Saturday. According to I-24 News, the babies were being carried out on gurneys, with some of them having been beheaded.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's awful. That sounds awful. But part of me says, is this real or is this propaganda?
Yeah.
And I hate that I have to think like that.
It's terrible.
But that's what you got to do.
But I just
got to, I mean, until there's actual confirmation, that's what you got to do, Brother Chris.
I don't want to be like manipulated by emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So there, and I'll explain why. There, you know, in the first Gulf War, right, we had U.S. intelligence agencies fabricate something that was known as the baby incubator story. Do you remember this, Ken?
Yes.
So the story incited anger among U.S. citizens and eventually led to the aggravation of the Gulf War. So what happened was at a U.S. congressional hearing, a tearful 15-year-old girl who claimed to be a Kuwaiti volunteer testified that Iraqi soldiers were coming in to a hospital with guns, taking babies out of incubators, took the incubators and left the babies on the cold floor to die. This is what she said in front of Congress, crying. The testimony was massive. I mean, it was on every news channel, and people were rightfully so pissed because, like, if anything, as Americans, like, we want to defend the defenseless. And I'm sure conservatives agree, there is nothing more defenseless than a baby. And we want to protect those that are defenseless. But in you know, the U.S. Congress authorized the use of force against Iraq for the Gulf War. But after the Gulf War ended, U.S. media outlets began revealing that the baby incubator story had been fabricated by the U.S. and Kuwaiti by the U.S. and that Kuwaiti medical workers had long denied the existence of that Kuwaiti volunteer. So am I saying that this story coming out of Israel where Israeli soldiers have discovered the bodies of 40 babies some have been beheaded, am I saying that this isn't real? No. I'm saying it's not confirmed yet. I haven't seen it anywhere other than this Red State site. And because of what I've seen in the past, I have to temper the emotional manipulation from the headline, where emotionally I want to kick and scream and say enough is enough. But factually, my brain goes back to the baby incubator story that led to us getting involved in the Gulf War. And I think that that's important. I think it's important to not let your emotions get the best of you when you see these headlines and ask yourself, is this real? It may be. And if it is, it's tragic. And I'm sure that Israel is going to make them pay for anything like this. Israel's already gearing up to make them pay as it is. But I just warn you against being emotionally manipulated, because we've been emotionally manipulated before. And if the story is true, well, I hope that Israel finds the people responsible and deals with them accordingly. But we've seen time and time again emotional manipulation used to get us into situations that we shouldn't be in. So, I hope that story isn't true. I pray that that's not true. And to me, it screams emotional manipulation and propaganda on its face. I pray it's just propaganda. And when you look at the two groups, Israel and Hamas, one group is far superior in the propaganda department. Far superior. I hope it's not true. I'll keep you updated on that story. If anyone does still, if anyone confirms it or there's any updates on that, I'll be the first to let you know. Could absolutely be true. It's a sad story. The whole thing is sad. Something that just came across my radar as well. And this is interesting. The Gateway Pundit is reporting that the Israeli Minister of National Security axes gun control measures and implements plan to distribute firearms to the public for security of the nation. This is big. So Israel does have some gun control measures, but they've axed them for the security of their state. This is from Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir. He says, "Today I directed the Firearms Licensing Division to go on emergency operation in order to allow as many citizens as possible to arm themselves. The plan will take effect within 24 hours. Below are the main points. 1, any citizen who meets detailed tests for carrying a private firearm due to self-defense and serving the security forces and is without a criminal or medical record will be required to undergo a telephone interview instead of a physical interview and will be receiving permission to carry a firearm within a week." So they're still going to have to do tests. They're still going to have to be screened. But it goes on. Any citizen, number 2, any citizen who received a conditional permit to purchase a firearm and did not purchase a firearm during the year 2023 and the conditional license has expired will be able to purchase a firearm now without the need to submit another application. The exemption will apply to about 4,000 citizens. 3, any citizen who deposited his weapon in the last 6 months due to failure to perform refresher training or renewal training will be able to receive his weapon back. The exemption will apply to about 1,800 citizens. 4, in addition, starting next Tuesday, conditional permits to carry firearms will be issued with a permit allowing the purchase of up to 100 bullets instead of 50 today. So it still seems like they have some criteria, but they're axing a bunch of regulation. And it's amazing to me how they had this much gun control in Israel as it is, knowing that you are surrounded on all sides by enemies. But isn't it amazing how when the chips are down, everybody realizes that guns keep people safe? Isn't that weird? Personally, I think that they need to get rid of all these restrictions immediately. If you're worried about foreign invaders coming in and doing what's being reported that's been done, you need more armed people on the ground than ever. Wouldn't you think? In fact, I think that we should be looking around in our country and realizing we probably need more armed citizens on the ground than ever. We have a southern border that's wide open with people from the terrorist watch list coming over and being apprehended. We are waiting, just waiting for sleeper cells to be activated. It can absolutely happen here, and I would suggest if you have your concealed carry, keep it on you, because nothing stops a bad guy with a gun but a good guy with a gun. We all know that. We do. And you can see it in action now. But, this story is developing. John Kirby sat down with Martha MacCallum yesterday. And Martha, to her credit, she got a lot of info out of John. She asked him how many Americans are being held by Hamas. And I say she got a lot of info out of John in jest. Oh, this is Martha asking John Kirby how many Americans are being held right now by Hamas.
How many Americans are being held hostage at this hour, John?
The truth is we don't know, Martha. I mean, certainly we've seen those reports, but we're not able to independently verify that Americans are indeed among the hostages. Now, look, we have to accept the very grim possibility and the likelihood that there are Americans being held hostage. We're in constant touch with Israeli officials right now to try to get a sense of the whereabouts of all the unaccounted for Americans, because they who knows where they are or what condition they're in. We want to make sure we get more detailed information on them.
Does it seem like it's forced, John Kirby saying he cares about Americans? I mean, where was the care in Afghanistan when they left so many behind? It just seems like that's his talking points right now. We're in constant communication. We need to know. Okay. I just don't believe anything this administration has to say. In fact, the administration doesn't say anything. In fact, just yesterday, the president called a lid at 11:46, and John Kirby was asked about that.
The White House called a lid on the president at 11:46 a.m. this morning. Given what is going on, John, why would that be?
Well, a lid means that he doesn't have any more public-facing events. It doesn't mean that the president's not working, and he absolutely is working. He had another update this morning with his national security team. He stayed updated throughout the day. He's going to be talking to foreign leaders later this afternoon.
He's busy. He's got naps. He's got naps lined up. I mean, if they called the lid at 11:46, that gets him to nap time by 1, right?
Yeah, that's pushing it.
Got to get in, get your jammies on. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then she's asked, Martha MacCallum asked John Kirby, does the president still think that his comments about climate change being a bigger threat than nuclear war, does he still believe that? Spoiler alert, he does.
The only existential threat humanity faces, even more frightening than a nuclear war, is global warming going above 1.5 degrees in the next 10 years.
Garbage.
Given all the nuclear players in these two areas where we are now engaged, John, does the president stand by that comment?
Absolutely, he does. Climate change is an existential threat. It actually threatens and is capable of wiping out all human life on Earth.
You think Hamas is bad? Well, let me tell you what happens if the temperature goes up 1.5 degrees. Is this serious? Like, do we have a serious government right now? Climate change? Climate change. Could end everything.
Wiping out all human life on Earth over time. I mean, I don't know how more existential you can get to that, but that doesn't mean that we walk away from our obligations, our national security interests in very dangerous parts of the world.
John,
You mentioned
he said it was more frightening than a nuclear war. Is that it's more frightening than a nuclear war in this moment?
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And thank goodness for our fearless leaders buying that oceanfront property to keep an eye on rising sea levels.
What will we do without them?
I mean, fearless.
The president believes wholeheartedly that climate change is an existential threat to all of human life on the planet. That's just science. That's a fact, Martha. But it doesn't mean that we turn our back on the other challenges facing this country and our allies and partners around the world.
That's science. That's just the facts. They only deal in facts in the Biden administration.
Of course. Natural facts.
Naturally. What a clown show. Couldn't the 0180 texted in, couldn't a nuclear war increase climate change? It's like Inception for the Biden administration.
Exactly. That's a new level of fear.
I mean, I can't believe that he just like doubled down like that. Like John Kirby, you're on Fox News, and you know how we feel about Fox News. You know, there's no secret there.
Because we're Fox News and we suck.
But he's on Fox News, and the audience is not going to respond to that very well. And they're not going to respond to that kindly.
It's an understatement, yeah.
And he doubles down. It's like, read the room, bro. Read the room. 9061. Time for Trump to change the climate in D.C. All right. I'm with it.
Based.
Oh, jeez. We got a little while longer to go until Matt Murphy checks in at noon. It is the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Instagram, Twitter, True Social, at Chris Hand on air. Hit the follow button, and I will follow back.
Crooked Joe puts China first. He puts Mexico first, Ukraine first, Europe first, Asia first, illegal aliens first, environmental lunatics and maniacs first. These are maniacs, these people. I don't know if they really believe it or is it just something to hurt our country. But everyone else is first. But he puts America last. He puts our workers last. He puts our industries last. He puts your families last. He puts everybody last. Everything that's good he puts last.
Israel at war, continuing coverage. We've got brand new death toll numbers coming in, and one of Tennessee's Republican congressmen explains why there's no rush to seat a speaker, even though Israel has declared war on Hamas. These stories and more at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 11:25. My name is Chris Hand. So I got a tweet a little while ago. This guy said, we know Chris Hand is all in on Palestine. He was celebrating Vivek Ramaswamy for agreeing that Israel should fend for themselves. I don't know how you gathered that. I don't know. I'm all in on Palestine. What? Have I said anything that says I've literally gone on record saying Israel should be allowed to kick their teeth down their throat.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. You've maintained that pretty steadily.
Just on their own. How is that all in for Palestine? So weird. What is it? What does Dan call them? Van Gogh listeners?
Yeah, that's Van Gogh listening right there.
That's Van Gogh listening. I will say this. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook are allowing ads for pro-Palestinian merchandise that's supporting Israel's destruction. This from Breitbart. Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook is allowing advertisement for pro-Palestinian merchandise that effectively supports Israel's destruction by replacing the Israel on the map with the Palestinian flag. The advertisements are apparently appearing in the news feeds of people who are receiving news from friends and relatives about the ongoing conflict, and they support, even if they support Israeli causes. So it shows this jewelry, West Bank Apparel, introducing the new exquisite sterling silver icon charm collection. And the ad is from that company, West Bank Apparel, and it's appearing in news feeds right in between posts by pro-Israel friends, one of whom had shared an article about Israeli families being murdered by Palestinian terrorists. The advertisement of the West Bank Apparel celebrates Palestinian heritage. It includes a charm bracelet that has a map that shows the Palestinian flag across the entire area of the state of Israel, and the area is administered by the Palestinian Authority. Another charm repeats the same design without the flag, but with the entire area of Israel associated with a Palestinian state. That area was known as Palestine, blah blah blah, until British rule. So they're allowing pro-Palestine ads on Facebook.
Super dope.
Super dope. Oh, and I'm sorry, guys. Van Gogh listener was a Phil Valentine.
That's Phil, yes. Yeah, I just read that as well. That's our mistake.
My bad. It's a big compliment for Dan, though.
Yeah, seriously.
My fault. But, listen, I want everybody to know that I don't support Hamas. I don't support terrorist groups. And I don't understand how me wanting to just be patient and not be emotionally manipulated by news, which we've seen ad nauseum in this country lately, that the news manipulates emotions. We see it with the Republican Party. We're always called Nazis and extremists. And we all know that that's not the case. We all know that the news is lying in those situations. And so I want to use that same tempered attitude, not being manipulated by emotions, when I deal with all news, not just one topic. So I got pushed back. You never said anything close to that, says Chris. You just said Israel can take care of themselves. Yep, I said that too. Yep. So, all right. Guess I'm pro-Palestine now, according to the super texters. I'm not. All right, 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Tell you about how warm it's going to get before changes come and cool us down again during the full forecast in 2 minutes. Israel at war, continuing coverage. Strikes continuing in the Middle East after Hamas attacked Israel with rockets over the weekend from the air from Gaza and with militants on the ground. Israel said to be preparing for a ground incursion, calling up 300,000 reservists. And right now in our nation's capital, without a speaker, the House is unable to pass legislation from a resolution backing Israel in its war on Hamas to new funding for U.S. military aid. Well, Tennessee 7th District Congressman Mark Green tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News the conflict with Hamas doesn't mean they have to rush to elect a new speaker.
The War Powers Act gives the president 30 days before he has to come to Congress, to respond to crises.
Republicans hear pitches from speaker candidates tonight, then vote on rules and possibly seat a new speaker tomorrow. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
11:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's happening? It's Chris Hand, Mac Moore producing, Ken Weaver in the newsroom, and you on the Super Text line and the phone lines. Same number for both, 615-737-9986. Adam in Columbia, you have a comment on Hamas. What's up, Adam? You're on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey, Chris. I'm going to be one of those callers that agrees with you. I think it's almost foolish, if I guess the situation would be like Canada attacking the United States. Israel can handle the situation. First of all, they got God behind them.
Yep.
Second of all, they have a tremendous army. They don't have Navy and things like that because they don't need them. So they're really good at protecting their own borders. But third, these guys are trained to the teeth and armed to the teeth with some of the best weaponry and training that you can get. I mean, just think about the Israeli martial art called Krav Maga. It's one of the most indefensible martial arts out there. So I guess bottom line, what I'm getting at is you don't run over to your friend's house and tell them you want to help them with something before they ask you. In this instance, we need to wait for Israel to ask for our help. And it would be foolish to do anything other than that.
No, I totally agree with that. And I also want to point out, we've been funding them to the tune of billions of dollars a year for decades, getting them ready to handle this type of situation should it come up. I don't think it's I think it's disrespectful to the Israelis to think that they can't handle this.
Absolutely, I agree.
Hey man, thanks for the call, Adam. I appreciate it. I like people calling and agreeing. I also like people to see to disagree with me. I like to have conversations. I don't want it to be an echo chamber. So if you do disagree, instead of mean tweets, mean texts, just call me, 615-737-9986. I won't shout you down. If you disagree with me, you can go to the front of the line. That's a pretty good deal. So even if you don't disagree with me, you can just say that. You go to the front of the line, I guess.
He has to lie to me.
Yeah, we have no real verification process on that. But I don't know. I'm not going to be swayed by name calling. I'm not going to be swayed by mean tweets, and I'm not going to be swayed by emotional propaganda. And some of these horror stories that you're hearing may very well come out to be true. But until they're confirmed, and I hate to say it, in this new world, but it's like I need hard evidence. I need to see the evidence with my own eyes. Because there's been too many times in U.S. history where they tell us something happened and it just didn't. That's why I brought up the baby incubator story from the Gulf War a little while ago. But you don't have to take my word for it. I don't want you to agree with me just to agree with me. I want you to do your own research, and I want you to be vigilant. I think that's the only thing that we can do right now is try to stay on our toes, not think emotionally, and just be realistic about what's happening and how we respond to it. John Kirby was asked about Iran participating in this. And John Kirby tells Martha McCallum on Fox News that he hasn't seen any evidence of it. And I would argue that there's definitely evidence that could show that Iran was involved in this. Iran and Hamas are tight. The $6 billion, we can go down the line, right? But John Kirby, he pushes back against the Wall Street Journal reporting and Martha McCallum. And here that is.
The United States believe that Iran was behind this attack. The Wall Street Journal says it was. Yeah. Can you confirm that for us?
I'm not able to confirm that specific reporting, Martha. We're obviously going to look at this very, very hard. We have been. We just haven't seen any evidence or intelligence, as you and I are speaking right now, that points to direct Iranian participation in these attacks.
So why does the Wall Street Journal have that and the White House doesn't?
Look, I'm not going to speak about intelligence matters and what we're collecting here on national TV. That said, though, Martha, make no mistake, and we've been very honest about this, Iran, of course, is complicit in these attacks because of its long-standing support to Hamas and other terrorist networks in the region. That's why we have got more than 400 sanctions against them. That's why we beefed up our presence not only in the Gulf area, but now in the Eastern Mediterranean.
So I was almost expecting him when she said, well, why does the Wall Street Journal have this and the U.S. government? I was almost expecting a Mike Pence. I don't know, Martha. I don't know.
I don't know.
But he didn't hit us with an I don't know. Didn't sound like he was about to.
It really did. I was gearing up for it. I was so excited.
But, while I personally think that there's plenty of evidence to support that Iran was involved, there's plenty of reporting saying just that. Do we take the Wall Street Journal on its face in 2023? Like, do we take it at face value? These are the same outlets that lie about everything. And we just need to agree with them when it comes to this situation and believe them when it comes to this situation. And that's why I think it's up to you to do your own research. It's up to you to do your own reading and not accept what others are telling you. See what happens. You know? Just do your own research. Of course, it does look sketchy with Iran. I mean, $6 billion for Iran. He was asked if the U.S. is going to freeze those assets because they haven't spent them yet. That would make sense, right? Are you gonna freeze the assets?
$6 billion that the Qataris are holding that was unfrozen in order to get 3 hostages back, John, that, you said, well, there are strings attached to that. Is that money now going to be refrozen?
I don't want to get any policy decisions going forward here, Martha. As I said last time you and I talked about this, that money can be refrozen at any time.
Doesn't that seem like a good time to do that?
We won't hesitate to make that decision if we feel we need to, but I'm not going to get ahead of a policy decision that hasn't been made yet.
So we could do it, but we're not going to do it. But I promise if we wanted to, we would. So thanks, Martha. Thanks. What a great question. It's just crazy to me. Mike in Goodlettsville, you have a comment on Israel. Mike, are you disagreeing with me? Where are we at?
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call. I just want to say this. So I know that there's a lot of listeners, and I'm glad that they're listening. This is a very scary situation in which we're involved with our lives in America right now. And I know we're limited on time. That don't think that this isn't going to happen in America or Middle Tennessee. It's not going to happen in a decade. It may not even happen in a couple of years. It may happen in a couple minutes. So everyone get prepared. I'm serious. If you have guns, if you don't, get guns only for your own protection, because we have to look out for ourselves. And when these missiles come from the Pacific and they're going to be coming over to California, the West, that we need to get ready for this like 9/11. That's all I'm saying, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Hey, thanks for the call, Mike. No, I mean, and while I pray that none of that happens, I think that it's a good reminder that you are responsible for your safety, and you should take proper precautions should anything happen. Because if we've seen anything from this current administration, their response time isn't great to situations regarding American citizens. Seems like American citizens are on the bottom of the totem pole. I got a text from a guy named Chris. He says, "My gun is going to save me from a missile." It's like, yeah, of course. Yeah,
common defense,
dude. Until you haven't shot at a missile, you haven't lived. No, of course, your gun's not going to save you from a missile. He's talking about like what happens if there's war. You should be prepared to protect yourself and your family. Everyone should. I mean, that's just the most logical thing to do. But I mean, hey, if the last defense you have for a missile is your gun, I would take action. Just putting that out there. John Kirby, the Biden administration, no action. They're not freezing the $6 billion that was gifted to Iran. And Martha McCallum asked him, everybody's so focused on Israel's border right now. Everybody's so focused on Ukraine's border. She asked him about our own southern border and the people that are crossing that are also on the terror watch list.
151 people on the terror watch list have crossed our southern border. Given the fact that U.S. and Israeli intelligence did not pick up on this terrorist attack that happened in Israel, what is being done to lock down those individuals who now are somewhere in the United States?
I don't have any specific law enforcement actions to speak to today. Obviously, we monitor threats to our national security from inside and outside the country, all in real time. Law enforcement and intelligence community are watching as closely as they can and monitoring this.
Doesn't it seem like he's just so uncomfortable by the question? It seems like he's squirming in his seat answering this. What's being done about the people on the terror watch list crossing our southern border? You can just hear him squirming.
I don't have any specific law enforcement actions to speak to today. Obviously, we monitor threats to our national security from inside and outside the country, all in real time. Law enforcement and intelligence community are watching as closely as they can and monitoring this. I would say, look, there's going to be a time and a place for us to take a look at the intel picture and what was known, what wasn't known. That's not the time now. The time now is to support Israel and make sure they have what they need to defend themselves. But are we more concerned about it?
How is it not the time now to look at the intelligence? That drives me nuts. They always talk about how they can walk and chew gum, but the time now is not to look at the intelligence.
For us to take a look at the intel picture and what was known, what wasn't known, that's not the time now. The time now is to support Israel and make sure they have what they need to defend themselves.
But are we more concerned about attacks along these lines by terrorists here in the United States, given that we have 151 new people in the country who snuck across the southern border?
Always concerned about terrorist attacks on the American people here at home. That hasn't changed since 9/11. It's not going to change under this administration.
Okay. That's like, she says, we have 151 terror watch list suspects that have crossed the southern border. And it reminds me of like the Simpsons line where Bart looks at Homer. He says, Dad, this is the worst day of my life. He goes, it's the worst day of your life so far. And it's like, so when she says we have 151 terror watch list suspects crossing the southern border, I always feel like it's 151 that we know of. You know what I mean? It doesn't make it any better. 1148 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy joining us next to let us know what's coming up on Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand, joined in studio by Matt Murphy. What up, Matt? How you doing?
Hello. I'd like to say a special hello to you, Chris Hand.
Oh, thanks.
And that's about it. Oh, hey.
Hey, morning.
Hey, friend. I besmirched the good name and character of your producer earlier.
Who, Mark?
Yeah, Mark Murray. Is this broke? What happened here? Someone broke this. Mine's broken.
Can we fix the microphones after the segment?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What do you got coming up on Murphy's show today? Anything fun?
I don't know.
You going to talk about anything happening?
You.
Are you gonna talk about?
Obviously, it's for me. I mean, we're at the stage where I know it's early on in this discussion. It's a major world event, but it is frankly difficult to watch and difficult to talk about some of the atrocities that are going on around the world right now. I imagine that is always the case. I know that's always the case since I've been on talk radio, but we will discuss them and we will get reaction from the listening audience. I think there's a lot of overreaction on a lot of different sides of this. I think it's a complete overreaction for somebody like Lindsey Graham or Nikki Haley to declare that we need to militarily intervene. By the way,
you didn't think Nikki Haley going full Mortal Kombat finish them was the right message to send?
You got it?
I do.
Let's hear it.
Oh, hold on.
Come on, Nikki.
That's why Ukraine needs us when Russia's doing this. That's why Israel needs us when Hamas and Iran are doing this. And I'll say this to Prime Minister Netanyahu, finish them. Finish them. Hamas did this. You know Iran's behind it. Finish them.
Finish them. I used to play Mortal Kombat. Do you ever play Mortal Kombat?
Oh, yeah. Fatality.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Who'd you like to play? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Sub-Zero was my guy.
I like Sub-Zero.
Like Sub-Zero.
I liked Reptile until I went down the lizard people rabbit hole, and then I'm out.
What was the guy? What was the guy that had the thing that was be like, "Come over here"?
Scorpion.
I was that guy too. I like that guy. Come over here. We'll talk obviously about a good bit about that. A good bit about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Joe Biden got deposed. You talk about that at all today?
I mentioned it. He was asked what color his Corvette was, I think.
Mm-hmm. Corvette.
Couldn't they have rescheduled that?
I mean, I suppose. I mean, he had so much going on yesterday. Oh, wait, nothing going on yesterday. Have we seen the president today? I don't know that we have.
There's a chance, and I've got this on good authority from super texters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The guy we're seeing isn't even the president. Earlobes don't match up.
Body double.
Oh, yeah.
A la Dave. Yeah, I like that. I agree with you.
Do you like that?
I like that. I mean, I think some random hardware. What was Dave in that movie? Have you ever seen the movie, Dave? You know what I'm talking about? Where Kevin Kline is the president of the United States, and the president dies having an affair, and so they find this guy that looks just like him as a body double. And he becomes, quote unquote, the president of the United States. And I think some random guy named Dave running a hardware store could do a better job than Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's like the old Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator.
Oh yeah, just
strong,
fiddling while Rome burns. But lots to talk about. Noon to 3. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, hang out with Matt Murphy. Find him on the Twitters at Matt
I'm
Murphy,
on the Twitters.
at Matt Murphy Show.
Chris Hand on air.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
we follow each other.
We do.
You know that Dan Mandis still doesn't follow me? Just throwing that out there.
You follow Dan.
I do.
That's how that works.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN.